Hi, my name's Monique and this is another episode of Community Designs. Today we're in Clyde North at the Selandra Rise estate. It's interesting because this land used to be farm. In fact, it used to be the farmland that I used to ride my horse on, which is kind of crazy. Let's go chat to some of the people who made this change happen because obviously it's been extremely significant. I'm standing on the nature strip with Nicola Ward, Manager of City Planning, City of Casey. Tell us where we are.
Oh, hi Monique, well, welcome. You're in the City of Casey. We're in the Cranbourne East area and we're in the Selandra Rise estate, and we're in front of the Selandra Community Place, which is an interim community facility in the estate.
Tell us more about this project and the council's engagement with.
So what happens in an early stage of development is there's not generally enough money in the coffers, so to speak, to deliver community facility. So we're in the process of developing our final community facility, but this is well and truly after a lot of the residents have moved in. So the concept of this interim facility was to create a space very early in the development where people can come and meet each other and start to build a sense of community and neighbourhood in an area that was otherwise paddocks and a development front. There's a long history of growth in Casey, and Melbourne's experienced phenomenal growth. And the challenge for councils and the community more generally in these outer suburban areas is that facilities aren't there when people move in. We wanted to try and do something differently, and that's what the government was interested in, and Stockland put their hand up to master plan a community in a way that really brought those connections in and those vital community facilities, whether it's this community hub or an open space, very early in the development, so that the people who are moving in had places to recreate, to undertake sport and to meet. And part of the experiment, if you will, was actually doing a longitudinal study to understand what was the impact on having these facilities invested in upfront and early, and also to understand what is the reality for people who are moving into these estates in the outer suburbs of Melbourne. What does it mean for them in terms of health and well-being? So a critical part of the study was, of the project, was RMIT undertaking a longitudinal study and working with the residents, really trying to understand their lived experience of moving into a new estate. That was undertaken with funding from Vic Health. So there are so many interesting partnerships associated with this project. It's almost hard to describe them all, but really trying to understand the lived experience of new residents in an outer suburban area it provides a lot of data and intelligence for us to try and do things differently going forward.
Because, you know, City of Casey is such a large, municipality. There's a lot of people moving in.
Yes.
Maybe talk a bit about, you know, the urban sprawl and how you're engaging with that.
Sure. So the City of Casey has been a growth area for about 30 years. So we understand as a council the impacts of growth. We're currently at a population of around 311,000 and we're looking to have a population probably of the order of 530,000, 540,000. So that's a city bigger than Tasmania, a city the size of Canberra really. The challenge for councils in all the outer suburban areas of Melbourne is really the rapid change of population growth. So we're getting well on 100 plus people moving in every week, and all those people require services. So our kinders are full, there's primary schools that need to be built, which is obviously a state government responsibility. Our families are needing places to meet and greet and just start to live their lives. So we're trying to think about how we can make sure we get those services to people early. The classic sort of idea of outer suburban sprawl is real. It is a challenge. There's traffic issues, there's lack of public transport, there's so many indicators of well-being that are quite poor in Casey and in other outer suburban areas. So what we're trying to do as a council is really understand that and put in place the investment and the facilities as early as possible within the limits of budgets to try and help to reverse those societal trends.
Talk a little bit more about the RMIT study and what impact that had with, you know, collected data and metrics.
So the study was a really interesting concept. What it did was with the support of the developer, identify residents who we knew were moving into the estate in time, and really tried to understand what their patterns of behaviour, their well-being and their activities were before they moved into their new estate. It then interviewed them following their arrival into the estate to really understand what is it that is going on differently in their lives. Are they getting the same amount of exercise? What is their measures of well-being? What does it mean in terms of journey to work times and so forth? And really, again, there's a lot in that study, and I commend it to anyone who's interested, but fundamentally it gave us the data that shows that people's health and well-being declines when you come into an outer suburban area. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but fundamentally there's issues associated with the time taken to get to employment areas, because there are very few jobs in the area, and that's something that council advocates very strongly on. People are tired, they're exhausted with the traffic, they come home, they don't have the time or the energy to play with their kids or to go to the gym or to do any of those sorts of activities that they might have done in their earlier lives. Yep. So part of the offering of facilities like a great park or great pathways to try and get even some of that informal activity, walking, cycling, taking the dog out, those sorts of things, just to get people moving, because we see the consequences of that in terms of our obesity rates in the city, and it's our many residents in Casey and outer suburban areas are not healthy.
Yeah. But that's why this is so exciting, because it is this sort of flagship project.
Yes.
Talk more about that.
The innovation here was really about creating a space that people could come to from day one when they moved in. So if you think about what the reality is for people who move into a new estate, generally they are pioneers in every sense of the word. There might be 5 or 6 houses. They're surrounded by building sites. The roads are variously made or not made. There's no connections. And people are very highly mortgaged when you come into a new estate like this, and very often it's their first home. So they don't have the furniture or even the inclination to invite a stranger into their house and form connections. So there's some fundamental barriers to community development that occurs in a new estate. So the concept was to try and create a space, a home-like space where people can come. It's sort of neutral territory. There's no sense of inviting strangers into your house, because it's a space that's welcoming to all. And to just provide some, very fundamental community development activities to help people to get to know each other. So we activated the space very early by having a community development officer in there. We engaged with the community on the type of activities that they wanted to do. We had a yoga class going, sort of a mums and bubs class.
Yeah, wow.
We had a very early sort of cultural cooking class that reflects the diversity of the residents of the estate. So a lot of really interesting, movie nights to get kids and parents together, and we put on popcorn and so forth. So really, really basic, relatively inexpensive activities. Went and door knocked around and said, come on in, it's your facility, because people were quite reluctant. They didn't really understand what the facility was offering. Yeah. And we've gradually seen over the time that it's been here, a sense of community developed. Friendships have been formed. You start to get that network that's critical to a sense of community and a sense of neighbourhood, which is vital for people who are coming into new estates in the outer suburban areas.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks. I'm hanging out in the backyard with Callum Pattie. Callum, tell us about this facility and your role.
So I'm team leader of community facilities.
Yeah.
This facility fits within the team, like a number of others within the city of Casey. So some of the facilities we manage is really about building, strengthening the community, providing activities, programs and events that bring people together.
Yeah.
So providing them with opportunities to meet one another, especially in isolated areas like this where they're new communities. It's a really great opportunity for people that otherwise wouldn't have connections to come along to a program, an arts exercise. We've got guys in there at the moment that are doing some mosaics. So there's new relationships that are being formed regularly just through some really basic programming and events.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing that it's so residential, and it's an extraordinary pilot project, it seems. It's kind of amazing that we're just chilling in the backyard and with drinks and there's snacks and yeah.
This is really unique. I think, as Nicola's pointed out earlier, the opportunity for us to come in so early. I think there was only 5 residents in the estate when this facility was open. So trying to engage them really early on, get them to know that there is opportunities for them to meet new people, but also to learn a little bit more about their council, because a lot of these guys that move in, the new residents, they're moving away from old social connections, their families, so they're really isolated when they move in. So it's a great opportunity to have something like this, which has that homely feel that makes people feel comfortable in an environment that they otherwise wouldn't be. So it's unique, but it's been a fantastic opportunity for us from a community development point of view to really provide opportunities for social connections, for people to meet each other, to try new things, but also to feel comfortable in their day-to-day life.
Talk to us a bit about the timeline of this project. So this will be at some point reverted back to a house.
It will be. So we're into our 6th year of this actual Selandra community place. Yep. We're currently working on a new integrated community centre, so that's a $6.5 million investment in the community, which is pretty exciting. Yep. That is obviously a much larger facility, so we'll have some different sorts of spaces in there. We'll have meeting spaces, consulting suites, a major hall, commercial kitchen, so providing a lot more opportunities as the community grow for them to be able to hire the space, but also for us to provide different opportunities and programs and activities, which is great.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Not a problem, thank you.
We're standing in the garage, if you believe it or not, with Dan Pleiter from Secca. Dan, tell us about this garage space, because it's obviously being converted.
Yeah, sure. So this is where we run some consultations with the community here. When people start to move to a new place and they're looking for land, the first thing they need to do after that, they've bought their land, is to build their house. So they've come into this garage here, into the house, which is an 8-star display, and we sit down with them and we talk about their building plans. So we run through everything to improve the efficiency of their home. So that's the primary reason why we're here.
So tell us about this board.
Yes. So this is just a real easy way, a visual display, to demonstrate to people what they can do in their home. So as you can see, there's solar panels there. That's one of the biggest things you can do to improve the efficiency of your home. You can generate your own power. Also got double glazing and insulation and draft sealing. If you get those 3 things working together, then you can control the cooling and heating space in the house. So typically that means that you can reduce the size of your air conditioner. You don't have to have it on as long, or your heating system. So, and also shading is one of the big things that we recommend as well. So if you can shade the east and the west windows, then you stop that heat from coming in the mornings and in the afternoons. So we explain the basic principles like that to the householders as they come in and as they're choosing their home. And once they realise that the value in it, they can reduce their bills. Typically they can then take that to their builder and ask to have some of these things installed in their home. So it's all about improving the efficiency of their home.
Because I guess people come here and they might not necessarily be aware of the orientation and what impact that has.
That's right, yeah. So, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. In the winter, it dips low in the horizon. And that means that if you've got all your living spaces facing north, then you're going to have that beautiful winter sun coming into your kitchen or into your dining room. So when you're having breakfast in the morning, you're getting that beautiful sun. So it's light and it's warm. And again, you don't have to have the heater on then. So a couple of those key principles really helps in your house design, and it obviously reduces your bills and it makes your house more comfortable.
So typically who would use this space? Like, do builders come in here as well to learn?
No, typically it's the new home buyer that would come in here. So when we first started here, you can imagine it's pretty much just a paddock out there, and the homeowner would come and they'd select their house. So along here we'd have a whole bunch of builders that would be demonstrating their homes, and the homeowner would come in here and would sit down and run through what their options were. So we certainly do work with the building industry, but typically we're trying to help people that are about to build a home, what their options are.
And so I noticed around the home there's these sort of dotted information pamphlets. Tell us about those. Yeah, so people learn in different ways. So we have a wall display here. We've got brochures, we've got videos, and all those things help explain and interpret what we're trying to get across to people in terms of energy efficiency. Yeah. And so people can just take those and... That's right. The idea would be that they would take those to the builder, or would they be able to implement them afterwards if they've already built the house and then want to retrofit?
That's right, absolutely. I mean, the whole idea is that they can then take that to their builder and say, look, we see value in improving the efficiency of our home, and what are the options, what upgrade options can you provide so that we can have a more efficient home and keep our bills, our running costs really low in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
No worries.
I'm on the boardwalk with Keri Belcher, Senior Development Manager for Stockland. Keri, tell us why Stockland was so interested in this project.
Yeah, sure. This was actually a really exciting opportunity for us. Basically, as Australia's largest diversified property company, for us, innovation, health and wellbeing, industry partnerships are all at the forefront of what we do. So Selandra Rise was just the perfect fit. So when the opportunity arose back in 2008 for developers basically throughout Victoria to put their hand up to participate, it was just the perfect alignment in our mind.
Yeah. And so what were some of the challenges?
It was interesting. There, I wouldn't necessarily say challenges. What we did have to do is basically run the project differently to what we normally did. So what that meant is, due to the nature of what we're trying to achieve, we actually had to run it in a much more consultative process. All the stakeholders involved bring residential communities to life, but we needed to bring everyone into every single decision we made. So I wouldn't call it a challenge, it was just different to what has historically been done in our industry.
And so do you imagine this is the blueprint for how you'll move forward in the future?
Most definitely. So as a network of industry partners, our key focus was around creating a blueprint. It was really about understanding what is the true impact that built form has on health and wellbeing, and what we set out to look at was 3 focus areas on that, and basically how do we increase health and wellbeing, how do we create more employment opportunities, and how do we deliver affordable and diverse housing. So at that point in time, 30% of the KC market were unable to buy a new property, and one of our key initiatives was to change that.
And so talk a bit about why this house looks the way it does.
Yeah, sure. So Selandra Community Place was a critical and fundamentally successful initiative in what we did. The whole idea of the house was around delivering early infrastructure. So one of the key challenges in growth corridors is often residents move in and it's a number of years before any infrastructure is placed on the ground. So the whole role of placing a home in our display village, which formed stage 1, was really about fostering community relationships and creating social networks. That was really the primary driver. What we also wanted to do though is use it as an opportunity to think about sustainability more broadly. So how could we design this house and being 8-star in a way that actually promotes environmental aspects about what you can do with your home. So the idea is it actually was meant to look like a traditional home. We wanted customers and residents to come here and feel a connection, for it to feel warmly, to feel comfortable, but then also demonstrate how they could apply these principles in their own homes as well.
And so it was built by Henley?
Yeah, correct. So Henley was a key partner for us. So they very much motivated and driven, like the remainder of the stakeholder group, to really do something unique and different. So it was the first 8-star home that they had delivered, and a lot of time and effort went in from their behalf. And a lot of their partner network, as in whether that be subcontractors or suppliers, really came forth with some amazing ideas in terms of innovation. So it really was a brilliant outcome in terms of the impact it's had on the community.
And so maybe talk a bit about, I guess, the takeaways from this exercise.
Yeah, it's been interesting and it's been a brilliant journey. I think all partners in varying capacities would tell you they've learnt a lot through this journey. What we did do, once we'd set a framework of 3 key focus areas, all of our initiatives then fell out of those 3 focus areas. So we overlaid the delivery of the project with a 5-year longitudinal study run by RMIT and Vic Health, and the whole idea of that was to test what worked and what didn't. And all partners came into this with a license to innovate. We knew that what we were going to do, not everything would work, but that was the whole point about the journey. So we've recently come to a close on that, and some of the things that really stood out, the early delivery of infrastructure, critically improved health and wellbeing. Undoubtedly that showed through in the study. You know, the delivery of this house, the delivery of the parks, the school, all of those things opening either before or within 3 months of the first resident had a significantly positive impact. On the area of potential improvement, whilst we had the bus come in within 3 years, which actually was a brilliant outcome, because typically they don't come to well beyond communities finishing and developers departing, the study shows that actually really spiked our results. But I think it still presented an area of opportunity about how could we even have brought that in year one, and what else could we do in the transport space. The other key thing that came through was employment. A lot of the residents within Selandra Rise are still commuting to the city to be able to fulfil the career that they're desiring to be within. So employment and local employment, and whilst we had initiatives that we deployed in this area, I think that definitely highlighted a future opportunity for us to think about both. It's really an industry-wide challenge. What can government do? What can industry partners do? What can developers do? How do we work together to create greater local employment opportunities?
Yeah, which would be fabulous, because it's obviously needed.
Correct. And summing it up, basically the residents in a holistic statement said what you've delivered at Selandra Rise is amazing, and if we had more time to use all the facilities and embrace the community in the way that you set it up, then that would be the perfect recipe. So really the key underlying driver or barrier to stopping that happening is commuting and employment being far away.
Well, congratulations. It's obviously such a success. And thanks for joining us.
No, you're welcome. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Community Designs. See you next time.